Hello everyone, this is Dr. Ian. For today, pag-uusapan naman natin ang points, lines, and planes sa geometry. At tulad na madalas kong sabihin sa inyo, ang pag-aaral ng mathematics, it's similar to learning a foreign language. You really need to know how to read it, how to say it, para mas maunawaan natin yung lingwahe at yung mga pamamaraan ng pag-aaral sa mathematics. At yan yung gagawin natin sa lesson natin ngayon sa geometry. At ang una nating i-define na undefined term sa geometry ay yung tinatawag nating point. Ang point, by definition, has no dimension, no length, width, or height. And it does have a location or position, and in geometry, kailangan nating matutunan kung paano natin ito isinusulat para kapag nakita natin ito sa mga questions at textbook natin, may intindihan natin yung mga symbols na ginagamit sa ating mga geometry lessons. So, how do you name a point in geometry? We use the capital letter. So, capital letter ang ginagamit natin to name a point at single letter lamang ang gagamitin natin to represent a point in geometry. For example, ito yung tinatawag nating point A. So, point A, we can write that out as point A, or pwede din natin siyang i-label using a capital letter. So again, capital letter yung gagamitin natin. So kung meron tayong another point, let's say this particular point, pwede natin tong tawagin point B, at kailangan nating i-focus ang ating camera so that you would see na ito ang tinatawag nating point B in geometry. So, capital letter ang gagamitin natin dahil yung small letter ay naka-reserve para sa ibang notation sa geometry. So, ang susunod natin ay yung line. By definition, a line extends to opposite direction without end and has one dimension. At yun yung length. So, paano natin sinusulat ang line sa geometry? We name a line by a single lowercase letter or by any 2 points on a line. So, dalawang pamamaraan kung paano tayo magsulat ng lines. It's either, let's say we have drawn a line right here, and this is, let's say, line L. Notice na ang ginamit kong letter to represent this line is lowercase L. So, ito yung tinatawag nating line L. And another way of writing out a line in geometry is by using 2 points. So let's say this is point A at ito ay point B. So pwede din natin itong tawaging line AB. And notice na ang ginamit kong symbol this time ay arrow in between, arrow on both ends to denote a line in geometry. At ang kagandahan sa pagsulat ng notation sa line, pwede din natin siyang isulat as line BA. So that means, pwede nyo pagbaliktarin yung inyong mga letters or points at parehas pa rin siya ng meaning sa geometry. So yan yung pamamaraan natin ng pagsulat ng line using geometry notation. So for example, we have line AB. We can name it as line L or line AB tulad ng nakikita nyo sa slide natin ngayon. At susunod naman natin ngayon ay yung plane. By definition, a plane extends in 2 dimensions without end. The 2 dimensions are length and width, but no thickness. So we represent a plane by a flat surface. So yan yung ating plane sa geometry. So meron tayong point, meron tayong line, at meron tayong plane. And how do you name a plane? Sabi dito, we name a plane by a single capital letter or by any 3. So any 3 points on the plane, and those points should not be on the same line, or tinatawag nating non-collinear points para ma-name natin siya as a plane in geometry notation. So, paano natin siya i-represent? So, let's say we have a plane, sabi, one-dimensional with length and width. So, ito yung ating plane. So, pwede natin ito tawagin plane P, so we can name it as plane P. So yan yung one way of naming it. Another way of naming it is kung meron tayong 3 points na hindi magkakalinya. So 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. So we can also name this plane as plane A, B, C. So yan yung pagsulat natin at notation sa plane using geometry symbols. So example niyan, meron tayong plane na makikita ninyo. We can name it as plane P or plane ABC at makikita ninyo na si A and C, even though they form a line, meron tayong restriction na kailangan 3 letters yung gagamitin natin, kaya in-include natin si B para alam natin na si plane or plane, yung tinitingnan nating figure, base doon sa symbol na nakikita natin. So yan ang kahalagahan ng pag-name ng mga undefined terms sa geometry so that we'll be able to understand the language of mathematics in geometry. So let's say, meron tayo ditong plane. Mapapansin nyo, maraming nakasulat na lines, points, at ang gagawin natin ngayon is to name points, lines, and planes mula dito sa figure na ito. So the first thing that we need to do is to write 2 other ways to name QT. So QT or line QT, dahil nakikita ninyo yung inyong arrow or yung inyong line na may arrow on both ends, ito yung ating line QT. And the other ways on how to write line QT, mapapansin nyo, alam natin na si line QT ay pwede din nating isulat as line TQ. At mapapansin din ninyo na yung ating dulong bahagi ng linya meron siyang small letter m dahil pwede din natin siyang tawaging line M. So ito yung dalawang ways on how to name these lines. We can name it as TQ or line M. So yan yung pamamaraan natin sa pagsulat ng mga points, lines, and planes sa geometry. Ang susunod naman natin is to write 2 other ways on how to name plane P. At ang rule natin dyan, kailangan natin ng 3 letters at kailangan yung mga letters na yun ay hindi magkakalinya. So that means if we're going to write another notation for plane P, sulat natin dito, plane P, another way of writing it would be plane R, Q, V. Pwede din siyang plane Q, S, V. At pwede din siyang R, V, S. At pwede niyong bali-baliktarin yung inyong mga letters dahil pagdating sa rule ng writing notation sa geometry, yung ordering niya ay hindi importante dito sa points, lines, and planes. Pero restricted yan para lang sa points, lines, and planes dahil meron tayong susunod na mga geometric symbols na kung saan yung order ng ating mga letters ay important. So for plane P, we can have plane RQV, we can have plane RSV, and we can have plane QV or QSV. At mapapansin nyo, tama yung mga nakuha nating mga planes dito sa ating pagsulat mula sa figure na ito. Paano naman natin kukunin yung points or 3 points that are co-linear? So yung ating word is co, which means together, and linear, in a line. So ano yung ating 3 points na co-linear? Makikita natin yan dahil obviously nasa isang linya sila, so pwede tayong RQS dito, kaya yung ating line RQS would be co-linear because they lie on the same line. Hindi pwede si TQ kasi sabi dun sa rule, 3 points that are co-linear at ang nakikita natin dun sa line na red na yan is 2 lang. So hindi natin siya pwedeng isama or i-qualify dun sa letter C natin. At sa huli naman, how do we name 4 points that are co-planar? So co-planar, co means together, and planar or plane, yung ating plane. So on the same plane. So ano yung 4 points na yan? Pwede natin gamitin si RQSV, RQSV, at mapapansin nyo, even though RQS are in the same line, pero since meron tayong V dyan, ibig sabihin yan, co-planar pa rin siya kasi nasa same plane pa rin siya na plane P. So yan yung pagsunod natin doon sa mga instruction natin to be able to understand the language of geometry. At yan yung kahalagahan na alam natin yung mga notations na pinag-aaralan natin sa mathematics. And moving on, let's define more undefined terms. So ang susunod natin would be space. Space is the set of all points in 3 dimensions. So ano ba yung mga space na yan? Pwede siyang geometric figure or a geometric figure is any non-empty subset of a space. So subset ng space ang lahat ng geometric figure, and use the term between when points are on the same line. So to be able to describe points on a line, we need to use the word between para hindi tayo magkalituhan kung ano ba yung tinitingnan, binabasa, at sinasagutan natin. For example, let's say we have a line, ay mapapansin ninyo, meron tayong dalawang figures, meron tayong line and plane, so meron tayong points A, B, C, D that are collinear dahil nasa isang linya sila, at meron tayong points A, C, B that are coplanar dahil nasa isa siyang plane. So pagka i-describe natin si point B, we can describe it as point B is in between points A and D. So in between, to denote that we are seeing that those points or that point is on the same line. So kung meron namang panabagong description dyan, pwede din natin iusog si D at ilagay natin si C. So in this case, babasahin natin siya as point B is between points A and C. So, ganyan natin ginagamit yung spaces or yung ating mga geometric notations para hindi tayo magkalituhan sa pag-describe ng ating mga illustration like what we are seeing right now. At pagdating naman sa plane na yan, makikita natin kung gagamitin natin yung word na between, si B or si point B, if we're going to describe it doon sa plane ABC, hindi na natin siya pwedeng sabihin na si B or point B is in between A and C dahil hindi sila collinear. So what we can do is describe it as point B is not between points A and C. So dito tayo nagkakaintindihan sa language of mathematics, making sure na yung mga word natin na ginagamit ay perfectly describe yung geometric situation na tinitingnan natin. Ang susunod nating undefined terms would be line segment. Ano ang kaibahan ng line segment sa line? Ang line segment, by definition, or simply segment, is a part of a line. It consists of 2 endpoints and all the points between them. So yan yung difference ng line sa line segment. When it comes to writing it out, it's also going to be a little different because in this case, we use a line on top of 2 capital letters nang walang arrow. At yan yung notation natin for line segment. Kapag nilagyan natin ng arrow yan, hindi na siya line segment o hindi na siya part ng line, kundi isang linya na. So, we read it as line segment AB at tulad nung line natin, pwede din natin siyang pagbaliktarin and we'll have line segment BA. So, for example, if we have 2 points, point A and B, and if we cannot connect those 2 points, notice na wala siyang arrow at ang endpoints natin ay A and B, kaya ito ay line segment. At isulat natin siya as line segment AB or line segment BA. So yan yung difference ng line at saka line segment. Ang line natin, let's say this is a line P, Q. So we'll write it as PQ and then arrow on top. And if it's a line segment, we can also denote it as line segment PQ to know na hindi natin ini-include yung infinite ending or no or line with no ends and both ends dahil ito ay line segment. So ibig sabihin yan, ito lang yung dinidescribe natin. So yan yung difference ng ating line at line segment. And again, be careful with your notation dahil one missing symbol would create confusion pagdating sa geometry. Next would be ray. Ano naman ang ray sa geometry? A ray is also a part of a line, but the difference is that it consists of an endpoint and all points of a line on one side of the endpoint. So meron tayong endpoint at merong isang non-terminating point. So that means if we're going to name it, we name a ray by its endpoint and any other point on the ray. Now, ito yung importante sa pag-name natin ng ray. Here, the order of points is important. So, ngayon, hindi tayo pwedeng magbaliktad ng mga letra dahil yung isang letra would represent the endpoint at yung isang letra would represent yung arrow natin or non-terminating endpoints or non-terminating line. So, that means si ray AB na makikita natin dito, if we're going to illustrate ray AB, ito would be A, B, pero yung linya natin would something similar to this one. So ito yung ating ray AB na tinatawag at hindi siya parehas ng ray BA. Bakit siya hindi parehas kay ray BA? Dahil si ray BA would be represented by, this is A, this is B, ray BA would be, this would be your endpoint, at ito yung inyong linya. So, magkaiba si AB kay BA at yan yung tatandaan natin kapag magsusulat tayo ng ray sa geometry. So, example dito, meron tayong ray AB at meron tayong ray BA na magkaiba ng notation dahil magkaiba sila ng direction. At next natin would be opposite rays. At opposite rays are two rays that share the same endpoint and form a line. So, iba yung opposite rays at iba yung single ray dahil, how do you name an opposite rays? We name each opposite ray as you would name a ray, pero ang kaibahan niya, meron silang common endpoint. At ito yung example ng ating opposite rays. So, mapapansin nyo, para siyang linya, pero meron tayong point in between them. So, yung point in between them would be C. So, pwede tayo magsulat as ray CB and ray CA, and the order of those letters are important dahil hindi sila pwede magkabaliktad para mas makita natin at magamit yung tamang ray na ginagamit natin sa isang problem or sa isang theorem. So, yan yung opposite ray na tinatawag. So, now that we're able to cover some of the undefined terms in geometry, we can now answer some instructions or follow some instructions using these codes. Codes dahil kung hindi natin alam yung mga symbols sa geometry, we're not going to be able to perform those instructions ng tama. So, paano ba natin mapuproduce yung figure na yan? By performing the steps from parts A all the way to part D. So, subukan natin siyang isulat using its instructions. So, point A, we need to draw three non-collinear points M and L. So, non-collinear, so dapat hindi siya magkakaparehas ng, or hindi siya pwede sa isang linya. So, ito ay non-collinear, A, B, C, or in this case, M, N, and L. And now that we have this line, the next thing that we need to do is to work on the second instruction, which is to draw line MN. This is M and this is N, and we know that line extends on both ends. So yan yung ating line MN. And instruction number 3, we need to draw line segment NL, and line segment, meron siyang endpoint. So endpoint is si N at saka si L. So ito ngayon, C, line segment NL, and the last instruction is to draw ray LM. Yung endpoint natin would be L at yung ating arrow would be with M, kaya ito yung ating ray M. So tingnan natin kung tama yung instruction na ginawa natin. So sabi daw dito, draw three non-collinear points. So to draw a non-collinear points, we draw M and L, and it cannot be on the same line. Now, line MN is an arrow with endpoints at M and N. Actually, it's not endpoint, but just a point on line MN. So this is the line MN and line segment NL. Meron tayong distinct endpoints na N at saka si L. So ito yung ating line segment NL. And the last one is ray LM, wherein L is our endpoint at si M yung ating arrow. So yan yung ating figure na nabuo mula sa instruction A, B, C, D, and we're able to produce that because we know the language of geometry, and we know that in mathematics, we need to know these symbols so that we'll be able to communicate and understand each other, of course, sa paggamit ng language of mathematics. Now, let's move on to some postulates that we use in these geometric figures. Una, 2 points determine a line postulate. Sabi dito sa postulate na yan, through any 2 points, there is exactly one line T that passes through points A and B, and line T is the only line that passes through both points. So, paano ba yung postulate na yan? 2 points determine a line. So, ibig kong sabihin yan, kung meron kang point M at meron kang point Q, 2 points determine a line dahil pag kinonect natin yan, we'll be able to create a line. So, yan lang yung ibig sabihin ng postulate na yan, na 2 points will determine a line. And in this case, postulate, it means ito yung ating mga accepted truths sa subject of geometry. At sa geometry lang natin to gagamitin, kaya nga tinatawag na postulate. Bakit? Dahil meron tayong definition sa calculus na kakaiba dito sa definition ng line or postulate na pinag-aralan natin. At malalaman ninyo yan pagka nag-calculus na kayo. So ito yung ating point A, ito yung ating point B. 2 points determine a line, so connect them and we'll be able to create a line. Next postulate would be the intersection of lines postulates. And in this case, if 2 distinct lines intersect, then they intersect at exactly 1 point. So, kailangan lang natin ng 2 lines na kailangan mag-intersect. So, like, meron tayong line MQ. Let's say meron tayong 2 points here and here. And this is point A and point B. Kapag kakinonect natin si point A and B, we'll be able to produce 2 distinct lines at yung intersection niya would be our single point of intersection, and we can name this as point Y. So yan yung ating intersection of line postulate, that for any 2 distinct lines, when they intersect, you'll be able to produce 1 point in that point of intersection. So yan yung ating intersection line postulate. So kung meron tayong line AB and line DE, it intersects at point C in this diagram. So this is the first line, and this is the second line, and their point of intersection is point C, at yan yung intersection of lines postulate. So, any 2 distinct lines na mag-intersect, lagi tayo makakahanap ng isang point of intersection. Now, let's work with the plane postulate or intersection of planes postulates. So, notice that if we have 2 distinct lines, when they intersect, it intersects at a point. Now, paano naman kung dalawang planes ang mag-intersect? So, if 2 distinct planes intersect, then they intersect in exactly 1 line. So, this time, you'll be able to produce a line when planes intersect. So let's say we have plane RST and we have plane WST, and they intersect, and that intersection is line ST. And to make it more visual, let's put a label, dahil napakahalaga ng label sa geometry para maka-avoid tayo ng confusion. In any type of relationship, we need to put labels para hindi confusing. So ito ngayon yung ating plane RST na nag-intersect kay plane WST, and we're able to produce line ST na intersection ng dalawang planes na yan. So yan yung ating tatlong postulates on point, lines, and plane. Another one that we need to work on or be able to understand, yung tinatawag nating 3 non-collinear points determine a plane postulate. So kung meron daw tayong 3 non-collinear points, makakabuo tayo ng plane. So, let's say we have QRS, we can produce plane P na QRS just make sure na hindi sila nasa isang linya, yung tatlong letters na yan or tatlong points na yan, so that we'll be able to produce a plane similar to this one. So, kung meron tayong mga planes, meron tayong mga geometric figures, pwede tayong makabuo ng figure similar to this one. So, notice that in this particular figure, we need to find certain intersection given yung description natin about this box. Alright, so each surface of the box, as we are seeing right now, represents parts of a plane. What is the intersection of plane ADC and plane BFG? So kailangan siyempre ma-identify natin kung nasaan yung mga planes na yan. Una, si plane ADC would be contained dito sa ating figure na ito. So ito yung ating plane ADC with endpoints A, D, and C that are non-collinear. So kailangan lang natin ng tatlo to represent it. At ito naman si plane BFG. So si plane BFG at si plane ADC also described as plane ADC and plane BFG. So kahit wala tayong isang letra kasi kailangan lang natin is tatlong letra to produce a plane, we can now see na meron siyang intersection at alam natin ang intersection ng planes ay line, kaya si line BC ang intersection ng ating plane ADC and plane BFG. So ganito natin natututunan, naiintindihan, nauunawaan yung instruction natin na medyo foreign for people who are not understanding our basic terminology sa geometry. That is why, just like what I mentioned on our first few minutes, learning mathematics is similar to learning a foreign language. At dyan, nagkaintindihan tayo dito sa hinahanap natin mula sa instruction natin in this particular geometric figure. Kaya, kung meron tayong figure na cube like this, if we're going to use this cube, what plane contains point N, P, and Q? So, paano natin ma-identify yung plane na yan na ang description should contain N, P, Q? Kunin lang natin yung mga points at alam natin ang plane, it needs to be a flat surface. So, ang plane natin dito, since meron tayong cube, would be a square figure at the bottom, which is that particular figure or region dito sa ating box. So, yan yung nagko-contain sa NPQ mula dito sa ating groups of planes dito sa geometric figure natin. Kaya, ang ating number bender challenge of the day, since nagkakaintindihan na tayo sa language of geometry, you'd be able to easily identify what is being asked dito sa ating number bender challenge. So comment it down below, what is the intersection of plane AEH and plane EFG sa geometry? At yan ang lesson natin. Medyo mahaba dahil marami tayong na-discuss na undefined terms and how to write it so that we'll be able to understand these symbols, because mathematics, again, is like learning a foreign language. So kailangan natin matutunan yung mga symbols na yan so that we'll be able to understand questions, problems, theorems, postulates na makikita natin sa subject of geometry. This is Dr. E, and see you again next time.